Morning, Drew.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Colonel?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Hey, man, blessed. Excited to be here. Excited to talk to you again today and see what ideas we can get flowing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I got your email about people
Okay.
interested in how we're recording
Yeah.
these videos and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, let's maybe we can talk through the comment boxes inside of the YouTube. That sounds like a good route. Um,
Yeah.
I do have a Colonel and Convict email set up too.
Okay.
But I haven't set it up, so I'm not regularly checking that yet. So I'd hate to give out an
Okay.
email and then be delinquent. So, but
Yeah. Well, no, we'll work on that. We'll figure some sort of effective avenue of communication
yep,
because I really think a key thing in growing this or anything in life is your network.
yep,
And you and I have a certain ability, which is this content, our life, our life experiences. But we're going to need people in our life helping us that have skill sets with technology, social media, and the like. So,
yep.
yeah. And you're the tech side of this, so really, you're the more important person to talk to.
What do you mean?
Anyways, good morning.
Hey,
Well, no, what I mean is you're
no,
you're
I know.
managing this
Yeah,
forward,
yeah.
so your thoughts and ideas are more critical.
I was being
Anyways, today,
I was being sarcastic. What do you mean? You don't have you can't manage the internet from your site?
yeah, yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, I haven't gone low enough in custody to be able to have that type of reach.
Okay.
JPay is my internet.
Yep, yep. That's your portal to the real world.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's the truth.
But it's pretty cool. I think what us recording this. My dad's out to visit. You can see I'm in a different venue because I'm
Yeah.
down at Lake of the Ozarks. Enjoying a couple of days off
Okay.
with the family, and my
Yeah.
dad's visiting,
Yeah.
and he's watched the videos that we've done so far, and
Yeah.
he thinks they're inspirational, and we got something going on.
Yeah.
So so positive feedback
Yeah.
there, and I think it's key
Yeah.
that we just keep on forging our material and thoughts and ability, to talk here. And I think today we were thinking about talking about skills, right? And I'll be honest with you, I think that sort of what we're doing with these, generating these videos, is part of our skill development, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think it's where we're starting to push to. And I think that's what you want to talk about. Is that what you wanted to cue on
Well,
today?
yeah. I think it's time that we kind of begin to explain shears to everybody, and within shears is the triune of skills. So let me just say really quick, and then just give a brief overview of shears. Shears is our kind of mental model um, processing of how life progresses and develops in an ideal way. Is that the first inner triangle of life is the development of skills, supporting those skills with habits, and giving yourself energy. And these three all feed one another. And that's the inner triangle of life. That's what I was doing when I was going to school. I was going there to get skills. My parents woke me up to try to give me good habits, and they fed me good food to give me energy. And these three things were supposed to feed each other. We all are on that plane. And the skills that I acquire, the energy I'm able to live with, the habits that I make and maintain, give me an attitude. And this is the second triangle. It's attitude, relationship, service. So if my energy's down, if my skills are non-existent, I'm going to tell you right now, my attitude is going to be non-existent. And your attitude establishes the arena for relationships that come into your life. And relationships really determine the service that we bring to the world. So this is just a very brief overview of shears and how we're going to talk about approaching life. But let me go back to the inner triangle and the skills. And today I want to talk about the three ways that we develop skills. And Colonel, you and I had talked about three metrics that we agreed, and we're going to relate these on the military side, and I'm going to share some prison experiences, and then we'll also just relate some civilian life experiences, okay? But it's structured learning. It's the metric of failure, controlled failure, and time. And these three things working together give us skills. So I want to start off talking to you and ask you, what skills were the hardest for you to develop and why? In your military career, being a Special Forces colonel, having a Ranger tab, combat dive school, what were your hardest skills to develop and why?
Yeah, that's pretty good. What were the hardest? So in my career, and way back starting at West Point, they do focus on you first as an individual, and make you a better planner, a better thinker.
Yeah.
But then they also start working on you as giving you leadership challenges, because leadership is a skill as well, right? So sometimes there's individual marksmanship, right? How well can you shoot your rifle, on a pop-up target range, or how well can you shoot your rifle in a shoot house where you're like a member of a team, and you got to go through doors and navigate hallways and not, accidentally point, a loaded weapon at your teammates, but then have a house full of bad guys where you're doing role playing, and we would have, we wouldn't have real ammunition, but we'd have, paint bullets, so then we could actually see what it's like and simulate. But then that could give you feedback, because we would train as a group to failure. So honestly, I had a lot of individual training challenges being a combat diver and Ranger school and all that stuff. So individually, those were all challenging. I earned a expert infantryman badge. How quickly can you, take apart and put together a 240 machine gun, and et cetera. So there's a bunch of individual tasks that I had to succeed in. But the more challenging ones were as a leader in complex environments where you're dealing with personalities and an ambiguous environment.
Yeah.
And the Army and Special Forces were really good at training that. And what they would do is we would go to like JRTC, the Joint Readiness Training Center, and we would spend months preparing for it, trying to hone our skills. Then they would throw us in this environment where we had role players and we're out in the woods, and we were training guerrillas, and they were just like privates and specialists in the Army. We were teaching them how to do combat patrols against an OP4 unit out in the woods, and we would have like laser tag on our rifles, with blanks. So we could actually, you got, if your system went off on you and the little flasher, then you were dead because the enemy shot you with the laser. And then we had to treat you like a casualty, right? But then the same thing would happen to the OPFOR. So, but they would make that our training environment so hard that you would fail. And then they would have mentors that were walking along with us, giving us immediate feedback on maybe mistakes or poor decision making we were doing. And then afterwards, they would run us through an after action review and give us feedback on things that maybe we didn't see or understand. And so, how you talked about that was very structured because they were timed, periods we would go into this training. The environment was so hard that we knew we were going to fail. Nobody's perfect. But it's how well can you learn from the environment, adapt and then forge your leadership and your teamwork, and then become better at the end of it. And the U.S. Army is very good because we'd always train to failure. It makes you humble. It makes you open to learning. And I think that's what makes us the best military in the world. And the Chinese are starting to copy that. And, they're getting past their Eastern.
They copy a lot.
Yeah, but they're getting past their reluctance to lose face. And they're actually starting to train to failure now. And they're getting better, right? We have studies about that, how they're getting better. So, and then the last thing, to go to your point. So that's how it was structured. We train to failure, but then we have a feedback mechanism in there. We call them AARs, after action reviews. So you learn from it. You have mentors, embedded mentors that are coaching you, but it takes time. And we would stop, and then we'd reset and go again, and so And part of that is because you're building brain tissue. Whether you're learning a music instrument or you're learning how to give speeches, you have to have repetition, and your body then will slowly start building brain tissue off of what you learned. And it's almost like you have to cultivate that garden and make sure that then that those lessons and those ideas actually become part of you and get in your subconscious, and then that's how you're on a higher level of band of excellence now because of your experience. So there, I rambled a bunch, but I sort of correlated
that
it
was
to the.
not rambling. That was good. That was good. I think everybody's going to benefit from that. I'm trying to think right now of an example, and I think I have one that I can give you in here of how in the life of prison, how structured learning, failure, and time and work together. Earlier today I sketched out. I have my journal right here. I kind of sketched out a kind of a mountain, like a mountain peak, and at the bottom of the mountain, imagine Mount Rainier.
Yep.
Okay. And at the bottom, you can fall, and it's not a big deal. Why? Because you're on relatively level ground.
Yep.
But as you begin to ascend that mountain, okay, and that takes time, okay, and ascending that mountain is the acquiring of skills, okay. The tolerance for failure reduces.
Yep.
When you get to that highest point on a mountain, you could fail, but your failure tolerance is a lot smaller than when you're at the bottom of the mountain. And I feel like there's a parallel there with even a military life or even in us. And so let me explain to you, when you come to prison for 30 years, how that starts. We have 3 different custody levels. Close custody, they're close to you. Medium custody, then where I'm at is long-term minimum, meaning you're going to be there for a long term. But in close custody, depending on the severity of your crime, you have to be there a certain amount of time. And in my situation, I had to be there 4 years. So the tolerance for failure was greater there. They overlooked a lot of small things. They didn't want you to make the big mistakes. All of us that come to prison, we're already wrecked vehicles. You get that?
Mm-hmm.
We're already kind of, our decision-making processes aren't really refined. A lot of people are just 12 months or less off drugs, and are very dysfunctional. So you enter that close custody, and they just want you to not make the big mistakes. But as you progress in custody, which takes time, the element of failure is smaller. So at this level I'm at right now, you really get dinged a lot harder for the smaller things because they expect that your skill set, your decision-making skill set, should have evolved.
Yep.
And it's no different than, when someone has a kid for the first time. There's a structured learning. They go get books, having your first baby.
Yep.
Parenting is a process of all failures. And I want to tell you this. Everything takes place in time. We live in time. Matter of fact, when you come to prison, they say you're doing time. So time is the most valuable commodity that exists. It cannot be renewed. So now I ramble. Your turn.
Yeah, no,
I
think
have a question for you. What do you think is the most important metric, and why? If you can isolate one.
Oh, out of those 3, structured learning, failure, and time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I'd probably talk about. I think structured learning. If I had to pick it, because then to have structured learning, you have to objectively look at where you're at, and where you want to go, and you're analyzing where you might have deficiencies, or just things that haven't been developed, and then if it is structured learning, then you're actually coming up with some sort of program where you're going to invest and here I go again, right? Time, energy, and focus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Time is inherent throughout, right? So maybe these are all interdependent, things, but and then you're going to have some sort of program where you're investing in improving yourself, and sometimes it's hard because you're consciously trying to, like if you're learning an instrument, you're just repetitively going over, the plucking of that string or hitting that piano key or beating that drum, you know, um, and until it goes subconscious, or you're trying to learn how to give, speeches. Well, you have to practice and get up there and open your brain to communicate the thoughts and be able to think objectively. How am I being received, or what is this? What are other people going to think of what I'm saying? That's a skill, that a skill that you got to forge over time, that has to go subconscious. But the only way to get better at any of these things is you have to develop a structured program to get after it. So that's what I would choose. Whether
yeah.
it's
I like that.
whether it's marksmanship, whether it's giving speeches, or whether it's even you know um, building a daily planner, right? I've shared with you the
Okay.
the bullet journal book, right? And so I got my little bullet journal right here, and it's like
Hold on, Colonel.
yeah,
I got my bullet journal too.
yeah, but time management and how you're
Yeah,
utilizing your day, trying to
yeah,
create masterpiece days, that's a
yeah,
skill in and of itself, right? You have to rank which tasks you're going to try to do. How do you maintain balance between investing in yourself for energy, your love and your relationships, and then your work. Have a balanced
yeah,
life. All those are key skills. And as you get past just the individual skills, then I think
yeah,
then you start doing things with other people and teams, and that's where leadership is in there, and that becomes a little more challenging. But
yeah,
I think you're right though, because as your skills develop, organizations, businesses, or the military, as you get more experience and you've navigated these obstacles, then you keep on getting new assignments and almost like new, bigger roles, right? And then they're
right.
expecting you not
The
to have.
tolerance for failure is smaller.
Yeah, and because they're giving you more responsibility, but
Yeah,
your judgment is becoming refined. Your
sure,
management of your thinking
sure.
is becoming refined. Application of your life force is actually for positive good. So they're gonna
Yeah,
give you responsibility in your stead, and then and if you keep on proving yourself, they'll keep on giving you more and more and more, and that translates into your salary and your prosperity and your fulfillment as a person, and so yeah, it keeps on increasing, but your skill set keeps you from having
yeah,
that tragic failure. you know
yeah, yeah. Your skill set, the recognition of skills, equips you with options. When you have multiple different tools to accomplish something, that makes you resilient. I wrote something down in my journal this morning. Resilient people pursue their goals in the face of adversity. And a metric that I would kind of highlight that I think has been a great teacher in my life is failure.
yeah
How to fail forward. Even in my job, I'm a plumber. And, I have some good bosses. They, they allow me to fail within a spectrum.
yep
And how I manage that failure, it determines the type of tradesman that I'm becoming. I know that what determines a successful day from an unsuccessful day is really how I managed my mistakes. A lot of times my inner critic jumps in and beats me down. And what happened when I was younger and a teenager in the streets, I couldn't handle failure. I couldn't handle my mistakes. Not only did I receive criticism maybe from the world, but the worst critic was the one that lived inside my head. And he told me that I was a loser, that this was a waste of time, I was never going to be good at this, and I should just give up. And that's what I did. And so I did something that it's pretty hard to fail at, which is doing drugs and drinking and doing nothing. And a lot of our society is in that pathway right now. But I couldn't handle failure. And so that always led me to making poor decisions in my life. And so here I am, 20 some odd years later, 42 years old, and I'm still navigating the same thing. Drew, how are you going to handle failure? You know, not taking it personal. And I think the failure aspect, there is a lot of structured learning in there. Because in my failures, and I'm telling you, I could give you 100 different examples of small things, not major. Recognizing there's wisdom to be gained there. And when you can start to look at the mistakes you make as an opportunity to add wisdom to your life, you are going to be able to digest. And when you digest something, you're extracting the nutrients out of it. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when you can digest failure, you can extract the wisdom, the knowledge, the discernment out of it going forward, and you realize that failure was a blessing to your life. It wasn't a curse.
Yeah.
So I'm going to highlight failure.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. So a couple of things popped in my head as you were talking through that, because I had a general one time when I was a battalion commander, and I was a battalion commander in Korea. A couple of my soldiers misbehaved on a subway towards Koreans, and it was perceived as a slight, them being rude, and it was caught on some, the video cameras, security cameras inside of the subway, and it hit national news, right? And so now so it was like a U.S. government incident, right? And so, my general called me and said, okay, hey, we got an issue, right? In a way, this is failure. This is a mistake because we misbehaved, but we took responsibility. We owned it. And then the general advised me and said, hey, let's look at this as an opportunity.
Okay.
Let's don't let this go by. And so what we ended up doing is, I went and visited the city mayor, huge city in South Korea, and I apologized for, what happened, and then we started coordinating with the governor of the province on how we could do a better job of our training that we provided Americans that came to South Korea. Their initial training, sort of like their cultural awareness. And we integrated representatives from the governor and the Korean government into our training plan. So we totally adapted and learned from it. And at the end of the day, like 2.5 months later, we were actually better for it, and we had a stronger relationship with the Koreans because we owned it. We digested where we could make improvements. We created some structured learning to address that shortfall. So we're not going to be perfect. There's still going to be incidents between Americans and Koreans going forward, but we reduce the likelihood. And so, the things you're talking about, recognizing failure, seeing it as an opportunity, not just as a failure for failure's sake, but actually something we can learn and grow from, I think is key.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a great example. I have sergeants, lieutenants, captains, direct supervisors in my life too, and each of them all have different expectation levels. And it's weird how the military and in prison, the ranking system is so parallel.
Yeah.
So we don't have a general. We do it in the form of a superintendent. That's our general. So the other thing I want to talk about is, no matter what, in any trade, you have to acquire 8,000 verified hours to be able to to be able to test out and take your journeyman license. And it doesn't matter how fast you learn. You're not going to get it overnight. You're not going to learn how to plumb or be an electrician in one day. Be able to take a test. I don't care if you study all night. They want you to have that element of time of experience. 8,000 hours. Now, here's an important thing. You can only claim 2,000 hours in a year.
Okay.
And you training under a journeyman, you can only get 2,000 hours a year. Maybe in some situations there's an exception, but for the most part, 2,000 is the mark. So it's 4 years of education. And I think in society, we're so used to we want to get it now. We want skills through a drive-through. We want fast food skills. Give it to me now. Let me be good at it. And that doesn't develop the character beneath the skill set. I would imagine a general in this situation who had this great wisdom, had this great perspective, also had a great many decades underneath him to come to that point.
Yeah.
And time is required of all of us. Time is a metric, and you have to learn how to embrace it. And it's funny I say that because I'm doing time, and I can't wait to get out of prison right now. I'm hoping and praying and believing, and things change with sentencing and laws. But you have to embrace the time that I'm given today. Today I have 24 hours to make a difference in my life and to live my life in a way that I can make a difference in someone else's life. And if I'm so focused on getting through something that I don't pick up the lessons that are meant to be learned in the journey. That makes sense?
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And I think that the reason why time is so key is that true growth a lot of times is incremental, and it's compounding. And so they say, like some of the expert chess players or musicians or whatnot, truly they can only do a normal person can only do about 4 hours of really intense practice. That's about your max capacity to have that like really concentrated focus.
Span.
Yeah, and so, but if you have the ability to plan your days so that 4 hours a day, whether you're writing a book or whether you're a college professor and you're developing curriculum, or you're a musician or whatnot, if you do have 2 to 4 hours a day, then what's going to happen is over time you're going to have that 1% growth of expertise in that area, whether it's a physical skill or whether it's knowledge, application of knowledge and wisdom, and it's going to keep on compounding over time. And they got the whole Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours required to become an expert.
Sure.
You got those things. Yeah. You got the there's different philosophies about how to generate expertise, but the key is doing it multiple days in a row, because then it goes subconscious, it gets wired into your head, and then every time you're building, it's almost like you're building that myelin sheath to get thicker and thicker and thicker, and then that enables you to be able to do it subconsciously.
Last minute, Colonel, I want to say Eric Greitens had a great quote. He said, "Our life builds not by dramatic events, but by accumulation."
Yep.
So I'll say that. It was a good talk today on skills.
Hey, I agree.
Hope that those listening benefited from it.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Drew. I hope you had a great week.
Yeah.
And no, I think it's great for us to kick it off, with SHEARS. SHEARS are important because you need them. If you focus on SHEARS, that'll help you cut through the BS in life. I think that's the mantra, right? Providing you focus and building the foundation for potential greatness that all of us have. And it's great talking with you, brother.
I love you, my friend.
Have a great day.
We'll talk soon. Bye, man.